If you are trying to have these big marketing campaigns and go viral, have a huge billboard and things like that, you might win in the short term, but you don't win the entire game.
Hey there, I'm Matt Diavella, and welcome to my short form podcast, 3 Rules. Each episode, I ask a guest to share 3 rules that help them find success and happiness. Today, I'm joined by Anaita Sarkar, entrepreneur and co-founder of Hero Packaging, a sustainable packaging company helping businesses reduce plastic waste. Beyond building a wildly successful brand, Anaita shares insights on e-commerce, marketing, and business growth, empowering others to launch and scale their own ventures. Her latest book is called How to Sell Anything Online. What's rule number 1 for you?
Rule number 1 is watch the ball. So I have been playing a lot of pickleball lately. I've recently gotten into it. I play 3 or 4 times a week. And something that's happened to me is when I started to get into this sport, I started to watch a lot more sport as well. Like this was, cricket and tennis. And I've started to realize, and I'm not the first one to say this, but I've started to realize that sport and business come with the same rules and the same philosophies. And one of the things, and this is really, really interesting, right? So I was watching cricket because my husband is really into cricket. And there was a new player who had come to open up the batting, and he kept saying these words to himself. You could see his mouth moving, and he was saying these words. And when you look closely, he was saying, "Watch the ball, watch the ball, watch the ball." And I was watching a lot of tennis players, and if you look at Federer, and he says to himself, watch the ball before he starts playing. And you can see him saying it to himself. And you think it's such a simple thing to say. Like, obviously you got to watch the ball. You're a sports person. Some of the best people in the world say to themselves, watch the ball. And I think about it like this. I think in business, it's the same thing. It's actually those small things that you need to do, that rule, the thing that you don't want to do, those tedious tasks. When it's like creating content every single day, writing 2 blog posts every single week, creating an email campaign every day. When you are thinking about those small, tedious things that you must do that people just don't do because they are trying to focus on these big marketing campaigns or trying to do something, like guerrilla marketing or go viral. They forget about the small, persistent task that if they do that really, really well, they will win the entire game. So, when someone is playing tennis and they say to themselves, watch the ball, it's because it gives them the best chance to actually win the game. They stop focusing on the crowd that's watching them, and they stop focusing on trying to hit a ball between their legs and have a show. What they're trying to do is just win the game. So if you are trying to do all these big things in business, so for example, if you are trying to have these big marketing campaigns and go viral, and you want to have a guerrilla marketing campaign and have a huge billboard and things like that, you might win in the short term, but you don't win the entire game. And so my strategy in life, and my strategy in business is watch the ball. And it is do the small things that you don't want to do every day, even when your motivation isn't there. Like, when we talk about creating content every day and people are like, yeah, but I'm not getting good engagement, or people are looking at me and I don't want to do that. It doesn't matter. All of those distractions shouldn't matter to you. It's about doing that thing regardless and being persistent at it every day. So for me, watching the ball is like a life motto. And it also comes down to simple things. Like, I've got 3 kids. So like doing the washing every day, or like telling your kids that you're proud of them every day. It's a small, tedious little task that you have to remember that when you're caught up in life, you forget about doing all those things, right? But when you do those small, small things, your kid becomes a better person, your house becomes better, your business becomes better, your personal brand becomes better. So it's about the small things, the consistent things.
I love this rule. You're playing pickleball now. I actually just got into squash.
Oh, did you?
Oh, yeah. It's like, it's the most cardio that I've done in years.
It's amazing. And you'll be so fit.
Yeah. I almost busted my knee the other day. I'm like, it's just, I'm getting too old. I need to ease into it a little bit more.
Yeah.
What are some of the smaller tasks when it comes to your work as an entrepreneur and a creator that are most impactful?
Creating content across 4 platforms every day, regardless of the quality of the content. I know that's hard for you to kind of listen to.
You're killing me inside a little bit.
We're just talking about how much of a perfectionist you are, and that's actually quite great, right, when it comes to content, because you know what works and you're like looking at the data and then you're fixing it. For me, I don't feel like I have the time at the moment to really dive deep into all of that stuff. All I know is I need to have brand awareness and I need to have my business in front of everyone's eyeballs. And so to do that, I just need to show up online. It doesn't matter what it's about. Sometimes I can talk about product. Sometimes I'll just have a little clip of me working and I'll try and think of text on screen. But regardless of what happens, I am creating one piece of content on 4 platforms or 3 platforms every single day without fail.
Okay, my pushback against that is that, say if I did 10 posts every week versus 1, is that going to make a significant difference if that one post was like 10 times as good?
100%, because you don't know if that post is good or not.
Oh, I know.
Right? Like one post does not give you the chance to do anything with that content because you might have put 10 hours into making that post thinking it's amazing and it flops and then you've done one post that week. So I would rather you do 10 and have a bigger chance of going viral and being seen by the right people, even if 9 of those pieces of content are absolute rubbish. I'm talking about it as a brand, so as a business. And if you're trying to sell products and services, being in people's faces it's more important to remind them that you exist than having a perfect video telling them about product benefits and features and it's done so perfectly. So even later on, when you've been in business for 5, 10, 15 years, even showing up more makes people remember that you exist. And that's really important.
What's your second rule?
My second rule is to stand for something and almost have an enemy or create an enemy. And that sounds so negative. But the way I think about it when it comes to business is when you have somewhat of a cult brand or a cult business or even a cult person, you see that the one thing that they do, not just being a charismatic leader, but they have something that they stand up against. So let's go into politics a little bit here, okay? We're neither here nor there, but let's talk about Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, okay? Why doesn't Joe Biden have that staunch follower base where they're fighting for him at the gates? And why does Donald Trump have people there like banging doors down and turning violent almost? And it's because Joe Biden, he was a good leader and he did what he had to do as president. Donald Trump focused on the enemy and focused on the thing that he stands against, right? Now, when we're talking about a brand, in any industry, there are so many competitors. It is very, very difficult to find a moat around your business. It's very, very difficult to have a unique selling proposition when you say, for example, you're selling activewear and there are about 10,000 brands selling activewear. How are you going to stand out? Something that you can do really well is take a stand against something. So I'll give you an example. There is a friend of mine has a fashion business. When you start a fashion business, you're up against a lot of businesses. And the way that she has turned it into an 8-figure business within 5 years is because she stood up against the idea that fashion is only for the size 6s. So she is creating fashion from size 4 to, I think, size 26. And her stand was, I will create the same fashion at the same price point for everyone, regardless of your size or shape and color. And so that is what she stood for. Another example, like a big example, is Patagonia. Right? So when you think about Patagonia, what they do really, really well is every time they bring out a product range or a collection, that product range will stand for something. So they brought out a range of denim, and that range of denim, they said, we stand against the dirty denim industry. So what we've done is we've written white papers, we've gone and done research, we've partnered with universities to do research on the denim industry. They actually went overseas and went to all the manufacturers, and they've created a range of denim that stands against that. So as a consumer, when you are buying a pair of jeans, there are 2 pairs of jeans. One, they're both $200. They both fit the same. They both look the same. You are going to choose the one that fights against that dirty denim industry because you don't want to be part of that. You want to be part of something good and a good movement. So when 2 things look the same, standing for something will actually make you the winner in that situation.
How important is it, the intention behind the thing that you stand for? Because I imagine a lot of people might take that advice and say, oh, great, let me just figure out the thing that's going to make me different, or, you know, what do I want to speak out against, versus maybe it coming from a place more internally about your own passions and vision as a leader. So yeah, what role does intention play?
I think intention is huge, but it's also coming back down to, why did you start this business? why are you in this business? Why this specific business, right? For me, and when I create packaging and sustainable packaging, I started it because in my previous business, I was horrible with my packaging. I only used single-use plastic. I had plastic everywhere. I saw my kids playing with plastic. In fact, I was my own enemy. I stand against what I was before. And so when you think about it, it's not about creating an enemy for the sake of it. And I don't mean an enemy like in such a negative way. I just mean really think about why you started, because there was like an anti of what you started, right? There is something there of you started it because of XYZ, and that XYZ is what you need to focus on. Overall, what I want is customers to buy my stuff, right? At the end of the day, you want to build something that makes a difference, but you also have to have people buy your things. And the people that buy your things are the ones that relate to you. If you are very, very strong in that, it almost creates a sense of FOMO. They don't want to go anywhere else because they're like, I love what she's saying, like that sense of like, I belong there. And so I would take that into everything.
I'm going to be back with the third and final rule in a moment, but first, one of the ways I'm supporting this podcast is through Patreon. By becoming a patron, you get access to the full unedited episodes of the show.
I think what you need to be able to do, and this relates to sport as well, reset really quickly. You're having a bad game, that's all right. Learn how to reset, fake it till you make it in your mind, and change your strategy and go again.
As a patron, you'll also get additional unused footage from my YouTube videos and access to a members-only area where you can ask me questions for my Patreon-exclusive AMA podcast. And most importantly, you'll feel good knowing that you're supporting a creator you like. And really, what other incentive do you need? Simply go to patreon.com/MattDiavella to support the show. That's patreon.com/MattDiavella. There's a link down in the description below. Thanks for considering. Let's move on to rule number 3.
My rule number 3 is be everywhere all at once at any given point in time in the cheapest way possible. And I repeat this to myself every morning. And I think this is the one thing that has made my business be able to tackle 50-year-old businesses, brands that have been around in the packaging space for 50, 60, 70 years in Australia. We've come in and we've had cut through and we've been recognized. And we're so small, but we're being recognized above all of these juggernauts in this industry. And it's to be everywhere. And when I talk about being everywhere, it's you need to show up where everyone is. And we did speak about this earlier, but if your customer is online, or if your customer is at the markets, or if your customer is on YouTube or wherever they are, you need to be in front of their face. Let's talk about me, for example, for packaging, right? When people are looking for sustainable packaging, it's not like they're looking through TikTok and hoping to see sustainable packaging, right? What they do is they go to Google and they type in sustainable packaging in Australia. My job is to make sure I have an ad. My job is to make sure my SEO is really good so that the first organic post that they see is mine. The ad that they see is mine. The Google shopping reviews that they see are mine. That to me is being everywhere because I know where my customers are. For you, for example, you're on YouTube and you know that you have other creators following you. You'd have general people following you. Where are they? What are they consuming? A lot of the time, what you'd love to do is create on TikTok and move them over to YouTube as well because you want them as that longer term follower. So what are you going to do on TikTok to show up all the time? So I need you to be everywhere, and it doesn't always cost a lot of money. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Obviously, we've got the time versus money concept, but you just need to show up on multiple platforms all the time.
So how could somebody who's maybe working by themselves, they're a solo creator, solo business owner, solopreneur, be everywhere all at once when they have so much competing for the time? Say they have 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. How could they possibly, put out 4 TikTok videos, Instagram videos, put out YouTube content, newsletter? Like there's so much, not to mention the business stuff, making the product, figuring out the sales funnels. Like how could we possibly have time to be everywhere?
Well, it's part of your job to be everywhere, right? So I would say that starting out, you say to yourself, 1 video a day. And that 1 video goes across 4 platforms, not 4 separate videos across 4 different platforms. It's 1 video on 4 platforms. If you are a business owner and say, for example, you know that you can get thousands more people to your website every month by writing 2 blog posts because that's what people are searching for, then you start by doing 2 blog posts, or you automate it. So you can use AI, you can use ChatGPT, you can get a freelancer to do it for you. Either you have to take the time and do these things yourself, or you have to pay someone to do it for you. And so something that I pay for to make sure that I am everywhere all at once is I pay for Facebook ads, I pay for TikTok ads, I pay for Google ads. So that runs and makes sure I am everywhere even when I'm sleeping. The other times, the only thing I focus on is content. And another thing that I do, which I truly believe with all my heart people should do, is if you don't already, create a personal brand outside of the brand that you already have, because that personal brand has saved me for Hero Packaging. And I'll tell you what happened. So Hero Packaging failed, right? 2 years ago. We ran out of money. We were about to go under. We had to stop paying ourselves. And my personal brand on TikTok, by creating content all the time and by mentioning Hero Packaging all the time, brought free traffic to the website constantly and ended up saving our business. And it took us a year, but without the personal brand, without that extra avenue of getting traffic to the site and being everywhere, like the business would have failed.
The very end of that rule, you say in the cheapest way possible. I imagine that's very important that you added that to this rule. What does that mean, and what are the cheapest ways possible to be everywhere?
Doing things in the cheapest way possible is a life rule, right? Like, how are you going to do things, and how are you going to scale up? How are you going to become a better personal brand? How are you going to show up everywhere? If you're going to spend money on that all the time, it's going to send you broke. So what you need to do is focus on, how can I do this in the cheapest way? And it always comes back to time versus money. So you either have to spend a ton of time on creating that content every day, or, creating that blog post, writing emails, meeting up with people and networking. That's all free.
It's a balance, right? Like, money is incredibly important, but then rule number 2 is important as well. Like, you do want to stand for something. You want to be able to make an impact and, change people's lives for the better. But at the end of the day, if money's not coming in, then all of that dreaming is going to go nowhere.
I mean, these 3 rules are holistic in nature. So you don't just do one without the other one either. And I think all 3 kind of relate to each other. So when you're being everywhere all at once and in the cheapest way possible, what I mean by that is, obviously you want to do things in the cheapest way possible. You do that in life anyway. So if you're driven by money, that's a different thing. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying having money in your business is the ultimate goal. It helps you, it helps your family, it helps the staff, it helps everyone. So you do things in the cheapest way possible because you're being smart with it. But that also doesn't mean that you have to stop standing for something. It doesn't mean that you don't stop watching the ball. It's just, in this case, when you are trying to be everywhere and scaling up your business, whether it's a personal brand or if it's your product business, you just have to make sure that you're doing things in a really cheap way. I always believe that to be true.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me. If people want to learn more about your work, where can we send them?
You can send them to Instagram, TikTok @SellAnythingOnline, or on hero.packaging.
Amazing. Thanks. Thanks for tuning in to 3 Rules. Want to see every rule from the show? Get the full archive at mattdiavella.com/3rules. For my weekly bite-sized self-development emails where I share insightful lessons, practical tips, and personal experiments, sign up at mattdiavella.com/newsletter. Thanks so much to Anaita for joining me. Check the links in the description to learn more about her work. See you next time.